Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's webinar, From Small Data to Big Data and Back Again. My name is Jonathan Schramm, and I'm the Director of Admissions for undergraduate and one-year master's programs here at the William & Mary Raymond A. Mason School of Business, which includes the Master's of Science in Business Analytics program, which is our sponsor for the night. So it's my pleasure to welcome all of you, our attendees, and just as large a pleasure to welcome and introduce our distinguished speaker and guest for the night, Dr. Joe Wilck. He is a clinical associate professor in the Operations and Information Systems Management Department at the Raymond A. Mason School of Business. He is also the Director of Business Analytics Programs at Mason. He's been teaching analytics, operations research, and engineering since 2006. His research is in the area of applied optimization and analytics and has been funded by the National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, and the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, among others. He is a registered professional engineer and an active member of the Institute of Industrial and System Engineers, Institute for Operations Research and the Management Sciences, and Military Operations Research Society. His most recent faculty position prior to coming to William & Mary was at the United States Air Force Academy. So please join me in welcoming him tonight. And Dr. Wilck, you have the floor.
All right, thank you, Jonathan, and thank you for being here. Can I just get a confirmation that you can hear me?
I can definitely hear you.
All right, good. All right, so let's go. So welcome again. And what we're gonna do tonight is I'm gonna kind of walk you through kind of a thought leadership, if you will, about big data. And but first, we need to think about small data, okay? And why small data is important. And you know, we got this far with it, so let's think about what this means and how we have evolved as organizations and also as humans when it comes to small data. So what I want to do is define small data here, and small data is small enough for human comprehension, and it's in a format and a volume that makes it accessible, informative, and actionable. In other words, you can make a decision with small data. Okay, so that's kind of the thought here with small data. Big data, though, it's multifaceted, all right? It's going to vary by industry. It's going to vary by context. And we're going to explore some ways that big data is characterized over the next few minutes. And we're going to keep in mind our definition of small data. With the goal, of course, and we are a business school and we are a business program, our goal here is to make better decisions with data. So we eventually want to get to something where we can make a decision or, you know, take a, you know, an action, if you will, so that we can do something better for our organization. So the first facet of big data is volume. Volume means scale of the data, okay? So, you know, how much is it? So just thinking about YouTube, for example, over 300 hours of YouTube are uploaded every minute. So the amount of time it takes me to go through this slide, 300 hours of YouTube videos are uploaded. You'll never be able to watch them all. 5 trillion photos taken in 2017, and obviously many, many more since then. Over 10 billion connected devices today, with the expectation that there will be over 50 billion over the next few years. So if you think about it, you probably have a number of connected devices in your residence, or maybe even, you know, on you. Maybe it's a computer and a phone. I know in my house, for example, we not only have one Alexa, we now have 3 because our kids want them as well, so we can use them almost as an intercom system. So again, multiple connected devices now per person and per household. The next facet of big data is velocity. So velocity in this case means the speed of the data. And really what it means for us from a business standpoint is our ability to analyze the data as it comes in. So streaming data, can we analyze it? What can we do with it? And how can we use this information to make decisions? So for example, modern vehicles have over 100 sensors And of course, there are the standard ones like monitoring fuel level and tire pressure, but there's also some other ones that are perhaps, could save your life, or, let you know that, hey, you need to pull over, your car is about to be severely damaged, so forth and so on. So there are a number of sensors constantly working on your vehicle, and essentially the computer, the brain within your automobile is keeping track of things and letting you know as the driver what you need to do. In one trading session of the New York Stock Exchange, over 1 terabyte of information is exchanged. And so that's every single session. So you can imagine just the size of the data that we are producing. And there's more than just the New York Stock Exchange, there's many others. So we have 10 billion network devices, but we actually have multiple network connections. So this is essentially meaning that there's 2 network connections per person on the planet. So if you think about it for myself as an individual, I actually have a number of network connections, through my phone, through my residence, at my job. So many people have multiple connections. So not just devices, but their internet footprint, if you will, and connections. And all of this is leading to streaming data. I'm sure you've been in a situation where you saw an advertisement on your computer when you were logged into your account. And then later that day, when you were logged in on your phone, you also saw a similar ad for the same type of product or from the same company. Everything's streaming, everything is being collected and used in real time. So the other facet of big data is variety. So this kind of comes from the diversity of the data, the different forms that the data can take on. So from a structure standpoint, there's structured data. So think about this in terms of something like databases or like an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so you have columns and rows of data, all right? But most data is actually unstructured. It doesn't come in a database. And all of these different types of devices now are giving us different types of data. So for example, there's wearable technology. A number of folks, I don't have one on, but a number of folks have the Fitbit watches and other types of wearable technology, or Apple Watch or whatever it's called. There's also video. So video, all the different video recordings, that is data, but it's not structured. Video is considered unstructured. Likewise, healthcare records, that would be unstructured data. And then trying to convert that into a form in which we can use it. And later on in a few minutes, we will talk about tweets, and that tweets are also unstructured. So any type of text or video would be considered unstructured. Even if it's typed, it's still considered unstructured. So at this point, you're probably seeing the alliteration with all the V's, and that's just kind of the way it worked within this business of big data. But the next V is veracity. So veracity is the uncertainty of the data. You can kind of think of this as the variability. So, nowadays we live in a realm where, a lot of times is the data accurate? And I'm not talking about fake news. I'm just talking about is the data, accurately measuring what you want it to measure? What's the quality of the data? Is it recent? Is it still relevant? Also, what about inconsistencies? And a lot of your time spent as an analyst will be dealing with inconsistencies. In fact, in my classes, I will often give students data that has known problems, and that's the step one, is to kind of fix and clean some of the data, because that's real world, real life. You have to clean the data. And then of course there is the trust aspect. Do you trust the data source? Is it coming from a reputable source? Are you sure that you'll be able to use it to again reach some sort of business conclusion? So again, veracity is the uncertainty of the data or the variability of the data, and how we can go about that. So that brings me to a question. And I realize we're spending a lot of time indoors right now because of COVID, but this is a picture from campus at William & Mary. Some of you may recognize it, but this is just down the hill from the business school building. There's a little wooded area behind the business school building, and it goes down to Lake Matoaka. And this is the amphitheater at Lake Metoaka. And this is about 150 yards down the hill from the business school building. And it's quite lovely. There are actually some folks teaching classes in this space this semester because they need to teach them outside. So it's actually being used as a classroom as well. But in any case, William and Mary has a weather station. And so my question to you is, how's the weather? And so let's have a look at what this weather station is capturing. So give me a moment here. I'm going to switch over. All right, so here is the Keck Lab, and this website, it's affiliated with the National Weather Service. They record weather observations every 10 minutes, and this website updates every 10 minutes. And you can download every single bit of data that they've ever collected, starting from 2003 when they put out the weather station. Now, there were a couple of days or hours where they had a hiccup, and so they don't have data. But for the most part, for 17 plus years now, they've been collecting data, and they get a reading every 10 minutes from the weather station at Lake Metoaka. And as you can see, they're keeping track of temperature, humidity, dew point, wind, whether it rained or not, all sorts of fun stuff. And so my question to you, so let me flip back. My question to you is, if this weather station is reporting current conditions every 10 minutes, that's 144 reports per day, 6 per hour. That would be 52,560 reports every year. And it includes a number of different measurements and whatnot. So my question to you is this big data or small data? So I don't know if we have a poll set up, but maybe people can jump into the chat for a second and just or the Q&A and say, do you think it's big data or small data? So one weather station, 144 reports per day, 52,560 reports per year. Is that big data or small data? Uh-oh, Jonathan, I've asked a question. They weren't ready for this quiz.
No, I don't think they were. Yeah,
That's
you should
okay.
you should be able to type big or small in the Q&A feature. If you have a guess, 50-50 chance, right?
All right, we got somebody saying big, somebody saying small. I like it. We're already having a debate and nobody's yelling at each other. I love it. All right. So I like it. It looks like it's bouncing around. We're getting a little bit of both. So here's the catch. So I would argue that one weather station is still small data, because in 10 minutes, I could take that information, look at it, and make a decision. I can make a decision of whether I need to wear a jacket today or not, or whether it's a good time to go out for a jog or not, that sort of thing. But once you take into account, so essentially you're both right. Once you take into account that we have over 250,000 weather stations in the United States, and some of them actually report measurements more than every 10 minutes, that would mean we have at least 13 billion reports every year, okay? So at least 13 billion reports every year. Clearly that is big data, okay? I mean, you're getting a report constantly. So you're both right. If you said small data, perhaps you were thinking about the one station. If you said big data, or perhaps you're thinking about all the weather stations that you've ever seen. All the different elementary schools and middle schools that have weather stations and whatnot that report back to the National Weather Service. All of those would add up to big data. So what do we have here? What are we doing with this? So let's think about another example, and how this kind of sorts itself out. So oftentimes, when it comes to big data, you have to think of it in terms of you're going to have some cases where you have a large volume of data but you also have different types of sources of data or different types of structures. And so typically what you have is you have this interesting menu where the columns are actually really long. I'm just showing you kind of the first 4 rows. But typically the columns are very long. You can have lots of different types of data. You can have different styles, sources, different industries. And the other thing to keep in mind is you may pick more than one from each column. So for example, you might have a large volume of data that is coming in continuously, okay? And maybe it's coming in through video. So for example, if you were the New York City Police Department and you have all of these videos, cameras throughout the city, then that would be large volume, continuous flow video, okay? Or, you know, if you're GE and you're manufacturing airplane engines, you know, perhaps you have sensors on some of your machines. So you have large volume, continuous flow, and sensors, you know, so it kind of depends on the application. And then of course, the different industries that can be impacted and the different function areas within the business that are also impacted. So keep in mind, you kind of have a mixture of all of these different things, whether it's veracity, velocity, or volume. You have a mixture of all of those different things kind of happening at once, the multifaceted aspect of it. So what does this look like, you know, perhaps in a different stage? So if you think about it, from a big data standpoint and from perhaps a data science standpoint, we do a number of different types of models. We create a number of different types of models, and we're doing this at the system level. So, you know, all the way through the system, but oftentimes you're also trying to apply these models to individual entities within the supply chain or within the production system or what have you. And so, for example, if you're, you know, GE, perhaps you are trying to implement predictive maintenance on some of your machines that you use in your manufacturing process. So, you know, maybe you want to make sure that you're using your machines as best you can, and you're allocating your resources and assets as best you can, and leveraging those. Perhaps you're also trying to increase your yield or your throughput. And then finally, maybe you are using optimization or analytics at kind of the system view. And in this case, perhaps you're thinking about what kind of products do you make? And oftentimes, you know, a company might have multiple products that are in the same product family. You know, maybe for example, if you're Nike, you might have this style of tennis shoe and this style of tennis shoe and this style of tennis shoe. Well, how much do you make of this one versus this one or versus this one? And you have to make those decisions. And then of course, you know, hopefully you distribute those correctly to your vendors and they're able to sell them. So all of these different things kind of lead themselves from different types of models. So that brings us to the last V. And this, in my opinion, is the most important, and that's value. In order for big data to be valuable, we have to turn the data into value through insights, okay? And those insights have to be small enough for human comprehension, in a format and a volume that makes it accessible, informative, and actionable. That's the same definition as small data. Essentially, we have to turn big data into small data in order to extract value, in order to be able to make a decision or to perform a business action to lead to a decision. So that's kind of the point. You know, we've come full circle here. I do want to jump in on one example. So let me flip screens here again. I'm sorry for bouncing around on you, but that's just how I roll. So this is going to be an example that I would typically do in like a class. And although I would typically use Python, in this particular case, I'm using Scala. That's a different programming language, but that's neither here nor there. The big data application or the app, and we do use this in one of the courses, is Spark. So, and again, typically we use Python to code in Spark. And then the context of here is Twitter. So we're going to see what's going on in the Twitter world right now. By the way, here's the code. And again, I'm not here to show you the code. I just want to, show you that I didn't just make this up. So let me run an app that I've coded up in Scala, and it takes a second to load. And I have a backdoor into Twitter. I have a developer account with them. And what you're seeing here are every second 10 random tweets. And so Twitter will give me between 40 and 50 tweets a second. And then I'm just printing out 10 random tweets every second. And what you'll notice are these tweets are not all in English. In fact, the majority of them are not in English. And quite frankly, they're going so fast, I can't really tell what's going on. My question, and you don't have to type this in the chat room, I'm just kind of talking out loud here. My question to you is, do you find this information, this data useful? And quite frankly, no. I mean, it's coming too fast. I can't decipher what's going on here. I would need to kind of frame it or package it in such a way that I can make some sort of use out of it, so that I know what's going on. So I'm going to stop this for a second. So what's beneficial about Twitter is they actually have a way for us to kind of know what the keyword is, or the keywords of a tweet are. They include the hashtag. So perhaps we can use that feature to allow us to learn more about what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the data as it comes in every second, and I'm going to keep track of the hashtags, and I'm just going to keep track of them as they come in and keep a count. And again, what you notice is the majority of them are still not necessarily in English, but now we're starting to see some kind of take shape. You're starting to see hashtags that are more frequent than others. Some of them are dealing with the election. At least one of them is dealing with K-pop, big surprise. By the way, K-pop is normally always number one, but obviously with the election going on, perhaps they're not the number one thing on Twitter right now. Looks like Pennsylvania is trending, probably due to the election, and then of course the Masked Singer. So you can see where our priorities are on Twitter. I'm having fun. Speaking of this though, and this is actually quite serious, when I was coding this up originally a few years ago, I was in my office. It was like late afternoon, early afternoon. I can't quite remember the time. And I got it working, and I was just kind of looking at it like I am now with you guys talking. And it was the day Notre Dame Cathedral had caught on fire in France. And I saw the hashtags. It was like Notre Dame is burning or something like that. And I'm like, what in the world does that mean? Like, I thought it might be slang or something. And then of course I, go to the news, and I see what had happened. So this type of analysis does work. If you're trying to keep track of what's trending, following Twitter, believe it or not, even though it's a lot of random junk, but once you keep track of what's trending, it will actually be quite informative. So that's taking big data and then turning it into something that's actionable, or at least insightful. So that's kind of the kind of interesting example here. So I've stopped it now, and let me go back to my slides. So in closing, because I want to give us some time for commentary and questions. In closing, the way we view data in this program is we view this as kind of the new oil, okay? I have been on the record saying that I think the Masters of Science in Business Analytics is the MBA of the 21st century. I think this degree is going to prepare you better for the workforce than a general management degree. And keep in mind, I say that knowing that I teach in MBA programs, all right? So just, for a full frame of reference, I teach in both programs. Now, what's interesting about oil, though, is once you use it, it becomes less valuable, okay? Because, as obviously once you burn it and use it, it becomes less valuable. But the thing about data is the more you use it, the better it gets and the more valuable it gets. So data is the new oil is actually not 100% an accurate metaphor or analogy, because data actually gets more refined and better and more valuable as you use it and learn more about it and understand it, and then make business decisions with it. So this is a quote from Forrester Research. Businesses are drowning in data, but starving for insight, okay? So it's kind of like, being in the middle of the ocean. There's water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. And that's where we come in. Our program is teaching folks how to transform that data into insights, okay? Whether it be through modeling or simulation or data wrangling, data cleaning, or big data applications like I've shown you here. So the other thing that you have to keep in mind, though, we are a business school, and this is business analytics. So we don't just teach the skills, we teach the system view, okay? And we teach the communications as well. And so we are also teaching you a systematic way of turning data into action, all right? So that's also important as well, is we want you to kind of walk out of here with a playbook of what to do, how to approach a problem, and so forth and so on, and not just a bunch of technical skills. So we try to kind of, walk that line of being able to do both, okay? So with that, I want to open it up for questions. And again, my name is Joe Wilck. I'm the faculty director for the program. It's been my pleasure working with you tonight. And we have a couple of admissions officers. I apologize for not putting their formal titles on here, but for all intents and purposes, Mr. Braceland and Mr. Schramm, they're the folks that you would be working with in terms of completing your application and whatnot. And I'm kind of the hired gun for the evening in terms of showing off some of our fun stuff in the program. So I'm ready for questions. Let's have at it. So while I'm waiting for a question, I have another example I usually also include when I talk about this sort of example. And that's enterprise rent-a-car. Now I took it out of the presentation tonight because due to COVID, enterprise rent-a-car, their business model, of course, is a little bit distraught right now because car rental agencies are not as needed anymore. But you probably have heard their slogan, and it's "We will pick you up." So we'll pick you up, and that didn't just come to them. Okay, so enterprise rent-a-car, a number of years ago, they looked at their data and they realized that even though they had, booths at airports and train stations and other places where you get people from out of town, they realized the majority of their customers were local. Okay. And if you think about, well, why would a local person want to rent a car? Well, I mean, your car's getting worked on and you got to take your kid to soccer practice or your mom to their doctor's appointment, or something like that. Or maybe you're in between vehicles or leases or something. So Enterprise Rent-A-Car decided to kind of build off of that model. So they made it a motto, "We'll pick you up." So to help with that convenience. But the other thing that they did, and this was a key business insight, is they made sure that they were strategically located either near auto dealerships or body shops, or at least had their business card prominently displayed at the auto body shop, okay? Because, you know, nothing's worse than having to take your car in and realize I'm not gonna have it for a few days. Now I gotta rent a car. I don't know who to call. And then I look down and I see the business card, enterprise rental car. And in that moment, you're not going to call two people. The first person you call and you get on the phone that says, yes, I have a car that you can rent. That's the decision. You're going to go with them. You always go with the first one you call. That's how it works. So strategically placing their business cards at auto shops, insurance companies, places like that, maybe even making deals with those organizations to kind of be their preferred rent a car situation, whether it be an insurance company or car dealership, it really helped their business. And that was an early part of their business model. By the way, I am a little surprised we didn't see more tweets about the election, but we'll see how it goes.
So Joe, I'll try to shoot a question out to you. So some of the programming you were using, actually we've got a question here, so maybe we'll take this one next, but some of the programs you were using, at what point in the MSBA program do students who maybe don't know how to code or program or anything to that effect are coming to us fresh out of, say, you know, liberal arts or a STEM background where they didn't really have a lot of experience in business? Do they start learning how to find actionable insights out of these large data sets? Does that start immediately in, say, one of the boot camp courses or one of the introductory courses in the fall?
So let me answer that by saying that I believe that you got to spend at least 50 hours in a particular software before you become competent enough and confident enough to use it to do something, okay? And the boot camps do that. The boot camps get you to 50 hours, all right? And I would say that you really need to get to perhaps 100 hours to really be able to do something like I just did, all right? Now, with that being said, in our very first regular course of the program, so not the boot camp or the prerequisite courses, but the very first course in the program is called Competing Through Business Analytics. And the professor that teaches in that course, his name's Jim Bradley. He's excellent. In fact, some of his teaching evaluations, like people say, like, this is the best course I've ever taken in my life, you know, like that sort of thing. He has a module where he does web scraping. And so you actually get very good at doing web scraping. And that's a teaching trick, okay? So when it comes to teaching, we have the ability to teach you a lot of breadth, or we can pick a topic and dive deep into it and make you really good at that one thing. And for Jim, for that course, he does a lot of breadth for a lot of different things, but for a particular coding application, he really does dive into the web scraping. And then for me, for example, I teach in the spring, and I teach the course on big data. We actually have a course called Big Data. I do a lot of recommender systems. So recommender systems would be something like Amazon or Netflix. And, once you've bought a couple of these items, they recommend you buy this other item. Or once you've watched a couple of these shows, they now recommend that you watch this other show. And so I teach students how to build those types of systems using the software that we're doing in the course and the program. So we do, deep dives on certain applications, but the purpose of it is to kind of get you using and familiar with the software. So it is a teaching kind of trick. And that leads us to the question. So one of the questions from the chat room here is, the the MSBA program covers a lot of different programming languages and tools. Which ones are utilized the most during the entire 10-month program? So the two primary tools that we use are R and Python. And I like to tell students that by the time you're done with the program, you will have spent 1,000 hours in R and 1,000 hours in Python. Now that doesn't, you're going to spend some of that time before you get to the program because you're going to have to do the prerequisites or the boot camps. But throughout your year with us, you will spend 1,000 hours in R and 1,000 hours in Python. Okay, you'll get to that limit. And by the time you've used a particular software for 1,000 hours, you're very good at being able to teach yourself how to do something. So maybe even if you're not an expert, you will have the ability to take something or watch a YouTube video or something and then be able to teach yourself how to do something else. So you will be very, very competent and highly skilled in those two softwares. Some additional software that we use Tableau for data visualization. We use Alteryx for database management. We use Gurobi for optimization. And I think we do a little bit of stuff in Excel, but Excel is kind of like, to be honest, it's a great software. I love it, but it's not really at the level we need. It can't handle the big data capabilities. So I would say the R and Python are number 1 and number 2, or number 1 and 1A, 1B, and then Tableau, Alteryx, Gurobi. Now, in terms of Power BI, which is a Microsoft product, we don't really get into that one, but you could. A lot of the stuff you do in Tableau is transferable to Power BI. We also use some cloud, so we do some stuff in AWS, and again. That's Amazon's cloud, but there's also Google Cloud and Microsoft's cloud as well. And so some of those skills are transferable. So, you learn one and then you just kind of have to learn where to click for the others. But once you figure it out, you're good to go. So hopefully that answered your question. Yeah, it's really satisfying for me. Over the summer, after the semester ends, in May, and students who, they get jobs throughout the school year, but students will email me over the summer or kind of late in the fall, and they'll say, something that you taught me in class really helped, I didn't see the point of it then, but now I'm seeing it now in my job. And it's really great to hear from them. And you hear about, and we get those kinds of emails all the time. And what's interesting is pretty much every faculty member gets those emails. And what that tells me is, for this one student, it might be, course A that really helped them in their job. But for this other student, it's course D. Okay. And so really what's interesting is our program is teaching students to be highly skilled in a number of areas, and then that allows them to go into different fields and make impacts. And it also allows them to kind of pursue what's really good for them. Because some folks, want to go into more of a coding role. Some folks want to go in more to a management or an analyst role. Some folks want to go into like a small business startup type situation and really be a key contributor to a small team or a small startup. And we're seeing, everything, all different industries. So it really does allow students to kind of pursue what they want to do.
Awesome. Well, are there any other questions tonight? We'll go ahead and wait a couple more seconds here and put everything to a close. Go ahead.
Well, I have a question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot, but
okay.
When are the next deadlines and what do I got to do to get my application in?
Sure. Well, Joe, we definitely would love to have your application. You'd probably do really well in the program. You seem like you know your stuff. So we're right in the middle. Actually, we just started our December 1 application deadline on November 2nd. So November 2nd to December 1 is basically our second round, and students can get decisions by December 20th. So before the new year, we know if you're admitted into the MSBA program. And as far as the preparation goes, we mentioned tonight a little bit about the boot camp courses. We do have some prerequisites and I guess a bit of a skill set, or at least academic exposure, that we expect our students to have before they come in. We've got some flexible ways to complete those. So if you're not, so basically we have 8 prerequisites. One of them is probability and statistics. Most students have that before they're applying, and that's the only one that we really don't offer through a boot camp. We can help you find different options or opportunities that to complete that before you come into the program. But if you aren't taking it, it's a little hard to do that. But for everything else, a lot of our business students will come to us already with the business foundation courses, which are Introduction to Corporate Finance, Introduction to Financial Accounting, Introduction to Marketing, and Intro to Operations Management. If you don't have those, we have links on our website, and we'll definitely provide you through the admissions process. We do a really great kind of screening process. If you think you've taken courses in these different areas, Mike Braceland, who Joe mentioned, is basically our frontline admissions counselor. So he will work with you to make sure that you're getting everything counted, and if something's kind of on the line, he'll help you evaluate that. So there are certain courses that you've taken that could count as prerequisites. But the 3 main ones that we see people needing as they're coming into the program are the technical prereqs, which are linear algebra, Python programming, and R programming. And so we offer those through a face-to-face boot camp. Typically, we're planning to do the boot camp face-to-face this year. All systems go at that point, but if not, we've developed some pretty great online delivery options, and we actually were able to deliver those, I think, in a really great fashion. Joe, you taught one of the boot camp courses, so you could speak better to that than I can, but everyone seemed happy.
In fact, just to say a word about that. So the boot camps, obviously this past summer 2020, we were in a rough spot with COVID. But the boot camps went well. In fact, doing them online actually might have opened up some doors for a different way of approaching them next year. So at least a couple of them might be more of a hybrid style, where the lectures will be available online as well as the face-to-face. So like you could get a sneak peek at the lecture if you wanted to, or come into the face-to-face. So it really would be kind of interesting to see how that goes in the future. And most of the students thought that the content, having it online, was very helpful, because if there was a trouble spot, they could go back and watch it again, something like that. So there's actually a big benefit to having some of those videos ready to go. And keep in mind, our videos, it wasn't just like somebody like me sitting in my, closet taking a video. Like, these videos were produced, professionally, and they looked really good. You almost felt like you were taking like a professional online class. So it really does help. We actually do have a question now. You might be able to answer this one though.
Yeah, I saw that. Thanks for that. Is it Faris or Fairs? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing. I shouldn't probably even try, but I can certainly share. There's definitely still some uncertainty out there as far as where the entire world's headed. So I don't think it's just the William and Mary program. But as far as more like Ferris, okay, good, thank you. So I would say that we had a lot of applications for students last year who, because of the pandemic, weren't able to attend, and we count those as applications still. count them as deferred to the 2021 cycle. So if you look at those together with the applicant pool from last year, we're trending just a little bit ahead, but we're definitely still open and very open to applications, especially from international students at this point in time. But I would say that the visa restrictions and the travel restrictions will, for this early deadline, we'll probably see a lot of those people applying when things become a little bit clearer in the spring. But don't wait, because the longer you wait, the more the pool fills up, and dot dot dot.
Yeah, I can speak to that just kind of anecdotally. I teach an undergraduate program as well, and I have a handful of students that are applying to graduate schools. They're graduating this year, and one of them is waiting to apply, but the majority of them, their faculty and some of our colleagues across campus, including Jonathan, have encouraged them to go ahead and apply now to various programs, because we do anticipate, hopefully, I mean, we're all optimistic here, but, once the pandemic kind of gets behind us and people get healthier, that the schools and more applicants are going to come in, and that just makes the competition harder. Not that you all aren't excellent candidates and won't get in anyways, but, it can't hurt to be first in line, right? So.
Mm-hmm. And I will stress that we have been able to have in-person classes throughout the fall and throughout the spring on a hybrid method. We also gave students the option to choose fully online, but very few actually did that. So I don't know how we stack up against other universities out there, but we have managed to hold in-person classes throughout the program.
Yeah, I took my mask off, but I actually had 3 classes today face-to-face. So I'm in the building. The big difference, and don't let this deter you, but the big difference is we're not supposed to get within 6 feet of a student. So perhaps the biggest difference is all of my office hours are virtual. Okay. Because I can't really talk to someone one-on-one unless it's, from 6 feet away. But other than that, the classes are face-to-face or mask-to-mask, if you will, because we all obviously wear masks and whatnot. And the other thing to keep in mind about William & Mary, and I'm very proud of our students for this, William & Mary, our number of COVID cases is actually very low. Mm-hmm. We have 50 cases for the entire William & Mary community, 50 and we have over 8,000 students. And so I know 50 is a number, it's more than 0. But on the other hand, our students are very respectful of each other. They are following the rules, and they are keeping themselves healthy and also their community healthy. And I'm very proud of our students. And I'm very happy. I'm shocked. I mean, I would have assumed it would have been more students that would have gotten sick, but they have done an excellent job. And we as a community are keeping each other safe, and we're holding each other accountable. So you can feel safe here.
I concur.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions, you can definitely feel free to reach out to me or Mike after the session tonight. You can certainly email me directly, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you want to ask offline. But I definitely do want to thank you, Dr. Wilck, for your time tonight. That was really extremely informative and also entertaining. And thank you to all the attendees who came tonight. I hope you found Dr. Wilck's talk as enjoyable as I did. Again, the program tonight was sponsored by the MSBA at William & Mary, so we hope that you all maintain your interest. And again, if you do have questions, please reach out to me directly. But if none remain, I will let you all go. And thank you again.
Have a good night, everyone. Be safe.